We're live. We today are going to look at two verses only, and the reason is that these two verses make a very important statement together, and which is something that we should take the time to make sure that we're clear about. And there's another section after these two, which I think is about, 6 or 8 verses long. But we can cover that whole one next week after we understand the basic principle, which is going to be defined and explained today. Greetings, Sunita and Jonathan, and to everybody else who's going to show up and who is silently here as well. All right. So let's have a look. Yeah. Rishabha has explained that we should try to make a relationship with divinity so that our hearts bond to that and our existence moves towards it. In 2 verses now he makes a practical point. Divinity is too remote from our current reality, so we should try to interact with it in a more tangible way. So just a quick review of stuff. Rishabhadev's teaching basically is human being has a choice to just basically be a fancier animal or to have a path towards liberation, which is accessible through concepts, sophisticated concepts, which are, accessed through words, which are recorded in the Vedas. So in other words, he's saying you have 2 choices. You can do stuff that animals do, make that the focus of your life, or you can make the focus of your life liberation. And then he says you will go towards one of these others depending on whom you make your connections with. If we make connections with people who are moving in left, then we move left. If we make connections with people who are moving right, then we move right. William, you have a question which is interesting, but it's completely out of the blue, and I want to just focus on what I'm focusing on. Maybe at the end I'll take a look at it. All right, so that's what the points that he made. You, depending on what you form your relationship with, you form your identity from that. And depending on what your identity is, that's what you are. So he then said, therefore you want to form your identity on me, then you will get to my status, my stage, my place. But so now the point is, how do you do that? How do you make a relationship with Bhagavan? And now I know the more like inspired and fanciful romantic people will say, well, no, Bhagavan is all around us, etc., which is cool. That's actually what he's going to say. But don't ignore this one basic point that Bhagavan is not all around us. Bhagavan doesn't walk down the street. Bhagavan's pictures don't show up in People magazine. You don't see a clip about Bhagavan on Twitter, like with, look, here's Bhagavan entering the shopping mall. You don't bump into him in an elevator. Stuff like that. Is he does not exist in this realm that we exist in the same way that other people do. And that makes it difficult because you fall in love with or want to form relationships with things that you experience. So that's what these 2 verses are going to be about. This problem. The problem that we want to make a relationship with Bhagavan, but there's no Bhagavan. Bhagavan exists in some other realm that we don't have access to. Okay? Is it clear? Interesting. Okay, so now here's what he says. Whoops. He says, Idam shariram mamadur vibhavyam sattvam hime hridayam yatra dharma prishte krito me yad adharma arat ato himam vrishabam prahurarya. My physical nature is unique, so its essence is very difficult to comprehend and perceive. Or you could say, so its existence is very difficult to comprehend and perceive. But honorable people call me the best because my heart is morality, Dharma, and immorality, adharma, is very far behind my back. So here is his statement. Idam shariram mama. Idam means this, and mama means my, and sharira basically means body. It means the way that a being presents itself for interaction. That's called the sharira, the interactable aspect of the being. We interact with each other through the sharira. I'm talking to you now through my mouth. You're listening to it with your ears. You're watching it with your eyes. So the mouth, the ears, the eyes are part of the sharira. The hands, the body, the legs, everything. This is what we mean by sharira. So because we have sharira, then we can interact with each other. But if you can't perceive somebody else's sharira, then you can't interact. Like if your internet goes out and the YouTube connection goes down, you can't see this sharira, you can't interact with it, you have no idea what's going on. So we need a sharira in order to interact with an entity. But Bhagavan's sharira is durvibhavyam. So let's break apart this word durvibhavyam. Bhavya means something that exists. Bhava means something which exists. Bhavya means to experience the existence of something. Vibhavya means to be able to say, this is a specific thing which exists, different from that specific thing that exists. That's what vibhavya means. V means to distinguish. So, for example, if you know nothing about red wine, then you drink any damn red wine and it tastes exactly the same. Probably tastes like garbage. But if you know everything about red wine, then you're like, what are you talking about? That is such a bad red wine, and this one is such a great red wine. So the person that knows, that second example of a person has a lot of vibhavya for wine. But the first person has no vibhavya for wine. That's what the word vibhavya means, to be able to distinguish one thing from another. A person that doesn't know anything about music can't just hear sounds, doesn't really know that a C is going to a G and that's a fifth, and that's why it feels a certain way. But a person who knows everything about music has the vibhavya, can tell the difference between a fifth and a third, and can see a seventh going to an eighth. Okay? So Bhagavan's sharira is durvibhavya, very difficult. Dur means difficult. Difficult to distinguish. In other words, it's difficult to experience Bhagavan as a unique, specific entity, which is not difficult at all. For me, right? You can see me right now. I'm on the screen. You can go outside and you can see some dude somewhere. You can see a tree next to that person and see that the person is not the tree, and the tree is not the person. And you can see the floor, and the floor is not the tree or the person. This is your vibhavya. It's easy. It's simple. But with Bhagavan, it is very difficult to be able to extract his actual sattva, his essence or his existence, from all the stuff that's also identical to him. To be able to perceive him as a unique, interactable person. That's very difficult. Idam shariram mamadur vibhavyam satyam. So that's what that statement means. And then he says, but, and this is the very important part, but the essence of what I am is something pretty simple that you can't understand. This is the really important thing about Bhagavan in general, which doesn't just apply to Bhagavan's rupa or form, but also to the lila, the activities. The particular form that the activities take may be baffling or what you may, may be difficult to comprehend, and it's not really important. It's not really important for the sadhaka or the practitioner in the preliminary stages. What's really important is to understand the essence of them. So he's saying this basic paradigm about Bhagavan that Rishabdev is explaining is really important to keep with you in mind all the time whenever you're thinking about Bhagavan at all. Specific details are above my head, but I want to be able to get the essence. Once you get the essence, then the specific details will start to clarify and become comprehensible. So, what he's saying is, it's very difficult to comprehend my particular specific interactable existence, but the essence of what I am is something you can't understand. And then he explains what the essence is. So he's the Hridaya. Hridaya literally means your core, or it means the inner part of you. So the essence of what he really is. Me hridayam yatra dharma. Prishte krito me yad adharma arat. Atto himam shabam prahurai arya. This is the Arya, honorable people, qualified people. They said that I am Rishabha. They named me Rishabha, which means the best. The reason why they named me Rishabha is because me hridayam yatra dharma. My heart is dharma. And adharma, I put it far behind me. And that's the essence of what I am. So my heart is morality, and immorality, adharma, is very far behind my back. So Rishabha's point is that we must form a bond with divinity, but divinity itself as a unique, specific being, Bhagavan, is very difficult to comprehend and perceive. However, we can comprehend a simple principle. Dharma is his core, and adharma is far behind him. Knowing this, we can achieve practical intimacy with Bhagavan even before we can actually perceive Bhagavan, by pursuing dharma and avoiding adharma. That is what Rishabhadev just told his kids. That's the point. He says, people can't see me, right? Directly interact with me so easily, but you can interact directly and easily with the simple point. Be moral, don't be immoral. And since morality is my heart, if you get yourself connected to morality, you are getting yourself connected to me. You understand? He will elaborate further on this in the next statement. I'm ignoring the chat till the end. 20. Tasmat bhavanto hridayena jata. I want you to understand this. That's what you wanted. That's why you tuned in. So focus on this. After you receive, then digest. Tasmat bhavanto hridayena jata sarve mahiyang samamum sanabham aklishta buddhya bhartam bhajadvam shushrushanam tadbharanam prajanam. Before I discuss this, I just remembered something from the sound. You can maybe hear the background noise that they're building a house next to me. So they're building, right now they're working on the foundation, and it takes forever. Building the foundation of a house takes forever. and nothing really seems to be happening. If you took a time-lapse photograph of the house building process, the first half or 3/4 of it would be really boring because you don't see much happening. Because it's just people putting pipes, making sure the pipes are right, changing them again because they weren't aligned correctly, putting these metal things in the ground very low, you can't even see it, digging something, can't even see it. Building a house is very analogous to achieving a spiritual goal. The way that there's a lot of change in the beginning when they clear the land is also very analogous. But then after that, nothing really seems to happen for a long time. But actually, everything is happening. The most important part is happening right now. When they build that house, the most important part is happening right now. How the foundation is made. If they skip to what kind of dressing they're going to put on the windows or what kind of tile they're going to put on the roof now and ignore the foundation, then their house is going to fall down. And it's the same thing with Bhagavan and spirituality. If we don't understand the core, the essence, the basic fundamental principles, then when we just talk about the tiles, the appearances, the details, it's really has no substance to it. It's just like makeup on an ugly face. The spirituality, which is all into the detail and the form of something without understanding the essence. So that's a very important thing. So that's what he's saying is it's very, very difficult to actually perceive my specifics. But therefore concentrate on the basics. The basic is that I am Dharma. Dharma is my essence, morality. What does morality mean? Morality means doing what you're supposed to do. And that's very simple. What are you? Do that thing. Be that thing. Be it well. And be it for the benefit of others. That's Dharma. So then the next thing, so after saying that Dharma is my core, you pursue Dharma and avoid Adharma, he says, Tasmat bhavanto hridayena jata sarve mahiyangsam amum sanabam aklishta buddhya bharatam bhajadvam sushrushanam tad bharanam prajanam. You are all born from my heart, so adhere to Dharma. Try to see me in everyone. Cooperate with your siblings with peaceful intellect. Attentively and faithfully help art to maintain the people. So he's talking to his kids. Children are called aurasa. Aurasa means born from the chest. Which is funny because we think kids are born from the genitals. But it's just the technicality of the child is born from the genital. The actual child is born from the chest. So in other words, the relationship of parent to child is not a matter of blood and bones. Relationship of parent to child is a matter of affection. That's why you can adopt a child. And it becomes your child. That's why you can have a child physically and give it up. So in Sanskrit, there's many words for children. One of them is putra, which means the thing that comes out. Basic name for a child. But another name for a child is aurasa, the one that's born from the chest. So playing on that concept, he says, you're my kids, so you come from my heart. Hridayena jata. So my heart is Dharma. You came from my heart. Tasmat bhavanto. So therefore be dharmic. You're all born from my heart. And he's not just talking to his kids. Remember, Rishabdev is Bhagavan's avatar. And all of us are rays of Bhagavan. So all of us come from his heart. So when he says, you are all born from my heart, he's not just speaking to his sons. He's speaking to you and me. You are all born from my heart. And my heart is Dharma, so it would be weird for you not to be dharmic. Be dharmic. Be yourself. Be real. Then he explains how to be dharmic. Sarve mahiyam shamamum sanabam. Try to see me in everyone. Sarve, in everyone. Mahiyam sam amum. Try to see. Mahiyam, angsam means the big one. Sarve, in everything. Amum, that big one. In everything. Try to see the great divinity in all the minuscule divinity. That's the first principle of Dharma. If you don't embrace that principle, then the rest of Dharma will be very, very difficult to comply with. You won't have any desire to comply with it. You'll have to force yourself to be nice to somebody. You'll have to force yourself to do something for somebody else because it won't make any sense. But if you realize that the supreme divinity is in every little single thing that exists, then Dharma starts to become a little more very natural, very easy. The only reason why we abuse women and children so much is because it's easier to get away with it. Because we think they're weak, can't fight back. They can't fight back, they're weak. Who cares? We have lack of respect for weak things. So we do terrible things to the weak. If we don't have lack of respect for something, we won't do anything terrible to it. So this the basic principle of Dharma is to not have lack of respect for anything. To have respect for everything. Everyone and everything. And how can you do that? By realizing sarve mahiyam samamum. This little tiny thing right here, which is just so weak or so insignificant, is the great thing. Try to see me in everyone, then you'll be dharmic. Sanabham aklishta buddhya. Cooperate with your siblings. Sanabham means your siblings. But it's also a reference to everybody, just like the regular concept. Brother, sister. You can refer to anybody as your brother or sister. Why? Because everybody is a brother and a sister in relation to God. So, but the word Sanabham is a reference to Vishnu, and Nabi means navel. Sanabham means a sibling because it means from the same belly. But by using that particular word to mean sibling, he's saying from the same navel, which means we're all from Vishnu's. Everything that exists comes from the navel of Vishnu, from the flower that comes from it. And that's why everything which exists is Sanabha, a sibling. Sanabha aklishta buddhya. Aklishta means peaceful. Not aggravating, not antagonistic. Aklishta. Klish is antagonist or aggravation is klish. Aklishta buddhya. Buddhya is what you plan. Your intelligence, your thoughts, how you make plans. Make your plans to not aggravate others. Plan your stuff in such a way that other people won't get aggravated because they're sanabha. They're your peers, they're your equals, they're just like you. You're also sarve, you're included in the sarve. So sarve, you're also mahiyam. The great one is you. So therefore you're all peers. We're all peers. So don't ever think that somebody else is insignificant. Let me step on them. Let me abuse them. Let me exploit them. Nobody is insignificant. Try to make your plans. You do make your plans. You have a plan. I want to get this. I want this. I'm interested in this. So then the Buddhi makes a plan how to get it. But make the plans in such a way that it's a klishta. It doesn't cause anybody else trouble. I don't have to steal all this person's money just to get the watch that I want. Let me make another plan of how to get the watch that I want. That won't hurt other people. Let me try to earn a living in a way that doesn't hurt society, etc., etc. It's aklishta buddhya. And then he says, bharatam pajadvam sushrushanam tad bharanam prajanam. Attentively and faithfully help Bharata maintain the people. So remember, he's talking to his kids. The oldest son is Bharata. So he's saying, I'm going to give the throne to Bharata. And all you guys should cooperate with him. That would be your Dharma. And by doing that Dharma, Dharma is my heart. If you treat people well, and if you cooperate with people, you're doing Dharma. And if you're doing Dharma, you are getting close. You're close. You're intimate with Bhagavan's heart. Not the body, not the eyes, not the legs, not the feet, not the hair, not the movements, not the name, not the color, not the activity, but the heart. And the heart is the thing which gives life to everything else. The name, the color, the form, the everything. So by getting the heart and getting close to the heart, you get close to everything else. But by trying to get close to everything else without the heart, you don't get nothing. You get an external world, actually. You get the world of that's only the form without the substance. So here he brings the principle of cooperating with Bharata, which is also an interesting thing, is everyone is equal, but some people will perform the role of leader. Cooperate with them. Perform your particular role. If you're the eldest, then you perform the role as the eldest. If you're the youngest, then perform the role as the youngest. Have a klishta buddhya. Don't try to change your position and change your, your whatever it is. Change your salary and your amount of respect and all that. Just do what you do well. That's Dharma. Don't try to knock the leader out of position because you want to be the leader. And the leader, Bharata, is trying to maintain the people. Is trying to bharanam prajanam. Bharata is trying to bharanam. That's why it's called Bharata, because he does bharana. Bharana means to maintain. Maintain a family, bharana. Support, that's what bharana means. Support a family. That's why he's called Bharata, because he supports the citizens. Prajana. Since he's doing morality, since Bharata is doing morality, Dharma, then everybody else should cooperate with Bharata, and that's their morality. If Bharata stops doing morality, then he should be abandoned. That was his very statement in 18. Now we're on text 20. In 18 he said, if you're not able to bring people to Bhagavan, then you're not a king. Then you're not a father, a mother, a guru, a friend. And you should be rejected. Who can bring somebody to Bhagavan? Someone who's doing Dharma. Because Dharma is the heart of Bhagavan. So if the leader is dharmic, then everybody should just cooperate with the leader. That's what he's asking his kids to do. Shushrushanam, attentively and faithfully. Living beings are rays of Bhagavan's heart. Right? You're all born from my heart. Since his heart is Dharma, we should try to be dharmic, which means moral, dutiful, and living with integrity. The Puranas define Dharma or morality as this. It's basically exactly the same as the golden rule of Christianity, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The Puranas say do not do anything to somebody else that you would not want them to do to you. Because what you do to other people is what's going to happen to you. So don't do anything to anybody else that you don't want to happen to you, because it will happen to you. That's the essence of Dharma, is to think of other people the way that we think of ourselves, with the importance and significance that we think of ourselves, and vice versa. To think of ourselves with the same importance that we think of other people. So to not do anything to ourselves that we wouldn't do to somebody else, and not do anything to somebody else that we wouldn't do to ourselves. That is Dharma. That's the basic essence of morality, right? Here's the foundation of the foundation. Rishabdev said, my existence as a unique entity is very difficult to comprehend, but the foundation of it is something you can grasp. The foundation of it is morality. And what is the basic essence of morality? The basic essence of morality is to not treat anybody the way that you don't want to be treated. Why? Because everybody is equal. Why? Because everybody is a ray of Bhagavan. So we need to treat everyone properly. A relationship with Bhagavan begins here with how we relate to all of his rays. He says, try to see me in everyone. This is the point. This is the point. If you think that this is, if different people tune into this stream, some people have no idea what the Bhagavatam is about, some people have no idea what, etc. Some people have a lot of idea. So if you think that this is not Gaudiya Vaishnavism, not Krishna, Prema, etc., you're wrong. This is Bhagavad Dharma. It's from Bhagavad Prana, which is Param Pramanam. And if you think that this is not Prem Dharma, then why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say Trinadapi Sunichena Tarore Vashishna Amanina Manadeya Kirtaniya Sadhari? So for people who think that they know a lot and they're ready to do Rasa Leela, whatever the hell it is, and they don't need to care about Dharma, you're wrong. You need to care about Dharma. Otherwise, your Nam Smarna and your Leela Smarna and everything falls apart. Like a house in a flood. Like a house in a tsunami. If you don't want the Ras Smarnam and Leela Smarnam to fall apart, then make sure you keep this Trinada Pisunichana Tarorya Vashishna. How do I treat other people? Because other people are Bhagavan. Let us face it, you do not wake up and eat breakfast with Krishna. You don't. Maybe you have a doll of Krishna that you feed, but you don't wake up and hug Krishna. You don't wake up and smell Krishna. But you do wake up and smell other people and hug other people and feed other people and eat with other people. And those other people are parts of Bhagavan. So it's how we treat those people that is truly the way that we interact with Bhagavan. And it doesn't matter how advanced you may be on the whatever yoga you may be in. It doesn't matter how tall the building gets. The foundation is always the source of its strength. It doesn't matter how tall the building is, if you break the foundation, it will still crumble. In fact, the taller it is, the more susceptible it is to damage to its foundation. The essence of how we should relate to each other is peacefully, aklishta, planning for each other's mutual benefit. He specifically asks his sons to accept the oldest son, Bharata, as their leader and cooperate with him in taking care of all the people of the world. Our relationship with each other is the beginning of our relationship with Bhagavan. This is the main point that Rishabha makes in these two statements. This is the main point. Now, that doesn't mean that Romeo and Juliet should have become Bhagavan realized. This is another important point on the other side of the fence. The point is, our relationship with each other is the foundation of our relationship with Bhagavan. But that doesn't mean that, let's just say, take Romeo and Juliet, just people who have somebody who have a deep relationship with each other. They're not experiencing Bhagavan because they don't have that concept that this person is Bhagavan. And that's why I'm relating with them. That's the important thing. If you want your relationship with other people, so let me say it this way. Our relationship to other people can be the foundation of our relationship to Bhagavan. If that is our intention. If our intention is to forge a relationship with Bhagavan, then the way that we interact with other people will form the foundation of that relationship. That's, in one sentence, the accurate information. It's not that by haphazardly relating to other people, just relating with them with no concept of no jnana at all, that you somehow develop a relationship with Bhagavan. Therefore, it's not important to study Bhagavatam, not important to hear about Krishna Katha, anything. It's just important to relate to others. No. Okay. This point, the reason why I'm very emphatic about this point is because this point is so poorly adopted. This point is so poorly adopted by people that think they love God and go out and bomb everybody, or make people, or just abuse people, or like neglect people, abandon people. This point is really poorly adopted, and this is one of the major reasons why you don't find a lot of really, truly exalted spiritual people. All right. What are the questions? What's going on in the chat? Anything? Any questions about this? I'll take questions from now. Any advice on how to deal with adharmic traits? Okay, good question. Any advice on how to deal with people with adharmic traits in people in context of loving God in them? Okay, so this is a good question. So, for example, I love animals. So I love snakes because the snakes are an animal. And I love bunnies because bunnies are an animal. But the way that I would interact with a bunny isn't the same way that I would interact with a snake, especially just meeting one for the first time in the wild. The way that I would love a snake is by giving it the space that makes it feel comfortable. The way that I would interact with a bunny would be encouraging it to try to come closer. Why would I interact with the two of them differently if I love them both? If I love the snake, why am I not encouraging the snake to come closer? Because the snake is a snake. Because the snake can kill me. Because the snake is poisonous. And the bunny is a vegetarian with little cute teeth and fuzzy whiskers. So that analogy is the same about whether you're dealing with somebody who is evil or good. The way that we love people who are evil is to keep them at a distance, at the very least. That is the least interactive way that we should deal with them. Just get them away. That's our love for them, because we don't want them to interact and cause us problems, because the way that we treat other people is the way that we will get treated. So if they treat us bad, they're going to have to experience bad things. Better than that is to try to correct them. But you have to judge if you are the corrector or not. What's your role in relation to the person? What role does the person accept you in? If the person accepts you in a role from which you could correct them, then it's your dharma to try to correct them. But if the person doesn't accept you in the role from which you can correct them, then it is adharmic to try to correct them. The dharma is just to leave them. Leave them alone and leave them. Get them out of your life. With family members who are adharmic, you are in a particular role with them. Right? So leaving them is not dharmic either. But so you would leave them in a certain level of intimacy. So, for example, don't go into that area in which they are adharmic with them. Go take them out into some area where there's mutual agreement. Depending on how evil the evil is, you may have to. For example, Sati and her father Daksha. She judged that the evil was too great and that there was no commonality and nothing could be done. So she killed herself and reincarnated as somebody else, not his daughter. So she got out of the relationship. She abandoned her father. So if the evil in a person is great enough, then they would have to be discommunicated even if there's other bonds. Evil originates from divinity and in divine creation, yet cannot be treated as a divine quality. No, evil originates in divinity in the same way that shadows originate from the sun. Shadows originate from the sun, but shadows have nothing to do with light. Shadows are the absence of light. So that's why Vrishabhadev said adharma prishta. What did you say? Prishte krito. Meyad adharma arat. Dharma is very far behind me because it's the shadow of Bhagavan is adharma. Evil is the shadow of good. In other words, is the lack of good. Darkness is the lack of light. Death is the lack of life. Evil is the lack of good. Evil is not a thing. Darkness is not a thing. Death is not a thing. It's the absence of a thing. So no, evil has no place in divinity itself. Evil is an artifact of divinity being obscured, just like a shadow is an artifact of light being obscured. So no, you don't embrace evil or any of that crap. And people that think that it's okay to embrace evil probably have not felt what it's like to be tortured, to be the subject of evil. Maybe they did, I don't know, but I wouldn't want to embrace it. Sunita, the golden rule extends to the treatment of all living beings, including animals, right? And of course, yes. Again, you don't treat a cow exactly the same way that you treat a woman, just like you don't, a woman or a human, you don't treat, just like you don't treat a snake exactly the same way as you treat a rabbit. It's the same idea, but there's love. So in other words, like things that you do with a human, you can't do with a cow. You have a conversation or something. But the principle is that divinity is manifest in all things, in all these entities. And so they should be all treated with respect according to their nature. Jimena asks, if death is the absence of life, does death exist? So it exists as abhav. It's called abhav. There's things which exist by their existence, and there's things which exist as the opposite nature of something which exists. The thing that exists, a thing that exists by virtue of being the opposite of something that exists. But its existence is dependent upon the thing that is the opposite of. So death doesn't exist as a thing in itself, but death exists as the absence of life. Bardo says, if someone considers themselves uber-dharmic and their family is adharmic, wouldn't it mean that there is still room for improvement of their own understanding and practice of Dharma? That's probably sounds like you probably are speaking from good experience, because that's a very valid point. You probably can't. You probably aren't very dharmic if you can't see that other people have good qualities. In fact, the nature of sadhu is someone who sees good, sadrishta, in others. 8th house, for example, that mentions, that's right, the 8th house has to do with death because it's the house of life. So it's the blockage or the problem which occurs to the 8th house, which indicates death. Anything else? Remember the really important basic point. Don't forget this really important basic point. Really, there's no such thing as God per se. Per se. There's no such thing as God in the same way as there's such a thing as a battery charger. There's such a thing as a battery charger. I hold it in my hand. But I can't get God in my hand right now. Yeah, theoretically, he is the hand, and he is the this and that, but actually not in the same way that this is. So remember that, because that is a real fact. So I can't relate to God in the same way that I can relate to something like this. Eventually, I will be able to. Rishabhadev doesn't say, I don't have a sharira. I don't exist, period. But he said that my sharira is non-existent in your perception, or very difficult to perceive by you. At one stage, it will be perceivable. At one stage, it will be as real as this. But it is not currently. Therefore, if we want to relate to something which is not here, we have to relate to its essence, to its sattva, to its hridaya. And the essence of Bhagavan, or the essence of God, is Dharma. So, pay attention to your Dharma. And do it with the cognition that this is how I am actually practically relating to Bhagavan. The way that I treat my spouse, the way that I treat my children, the way that I treat my neighbors, the way that I treat my coworkers, the way that I work for my boss, is the way that I would treat my Bhagavan. If I could. Everybody thinks, oh, only if Krishna was as real as this, then I would treat him exactly the same way you treat everybody else who's as real as this. Therefore, practice with everybody else who is as real as this. All right? Okay. Thank you very much. Glad to see Alpha's here. I'm glad that there was people here for this session. I hope a lot of people watched the recording, because this is a really important point. This is, by the way, Rishabhadev, who's the founder of Jainism. And you can see why the Jains are very careful about how they treat all living things. You know, we all wore face masks during Corona. The Jains have been wearing face masks for centuries because they don't want to breathe in a bug accidentally. So this teaching of Rishabhadev formed the foundation of Jainism, which is very, very focused on Dharma and how you treat other living things. Being careful about how you treat other living things. Thanks, everybody.